Hello there, this is an episode of By the Numbers, starring me, Thorin, and MonteCristo. We like to make money, and the company that has money to pay us to make the money is Alphadraft. And as a company with money, which we love, they provide this TV show. It's not really a TV show. It's a TV show in my mind, Monty. I am the host of a TV show on the internet called By the Numbers. And on this show, we're going to do a little bit of a different one this week, which is normally we go specifically into the matchups that are taking place in LCS or in LCK or in LPL. Well, we don't really do LPL. We pretend to. We did it once when we had too money. They forced us one time too. And we said, yes, oh, magnanimous overlords, thank you for the money. We will talk about LPL and pretend we know who the fuck's going to win those matches because no one knows those matches.
See, it's a lot like being an LPL player, though. You accept large amounts of money to participate in the LPL, but you really have no idea what the fuck's going on, what the fuck your teammates are saying to you or your coaches or anything like that. So it's actually quite similar to the player's experience, I feel.
And much like Imp, the devilish, malevolent little force that he is. People don't know this, Money, but you remember when Imp turned up to the LCK finals? And he had this like terrible shirt on that looked like he got it from like a thrift shop or something. But then people Googled, and this is the whole thing, it was delayed reaction. He purposely wanted you to Google. Because when you Googled like Madonna and Child t-shirt Korea, it came up and it was like 16,000 euros or something.
No, so it was 1,100 euro, but it was still a t-shirt for over $1,000.
But the point is, he's trying to show off like what a baller he is. Well, what people don't know, Monty, is this like basic red scarf costs like $5,000, and I have a new one for every single show I do because I don't give a fuck, right? I'm getting paid off talking shit on TSM, so thanks to Alphadraft for doing so. Let's get into it.
Also, it helps me because you can see not only am I sponsored by Alphadraft, but my team is as well, and I am currently sitting in a giant house with like 7 bedrooms in it in Los Angeles. That is, it's Renegade's house right now, so I'd like to thank them for that too.
The thing I've seen, actually, is some of the teams in CSGO, I don't know if it's your team, I know Dignitas has this, but some of the teams actually have a patch that they stick on their jerseys of Alphadraft. So much like that patch, Monty, I feel like Alphadraft sponsoring Renegades is a bit of a rip-off.
Oh.
Okay, anyway, it's like the CSGO show. That's not even relevant at this point, is it? Okay, so everyone watching now is like, I thought they were a good team. Didn't they get into LCS? Like, yeah, different game, mate. Anyway, so before we jump into what this episode is going to be about, can you update people, Monty, on what the contest for Worlds is about on Alphadraft? What are the details of it?
Sure. So there is currently a free to enter contest on Alphadraft. You can enter up to 20 times. It is for the entirety of the group stages, and the total prize pool is $5,000 with $1,000 going to the winner. So if you get the best team throughout the entire group stage, which is a lot of players, you can win up to $1,000 or some part of the $5,000. So if you haven't played before, you can enter with up to 20 different rosters. Check out the game. It's fun. It's free. It could be very profitable for you.
I thought you were going to go into that like classic Hot Shot GG.
Hot Shot GG, yeah.
Like, it's fast, it's fun, it's Alphadraft, world competition. That would be you were the ultimate sellout, Monty, if you did that.
But see, the difference is that unlike Dominion, people actually play Alphadraft.
There you go. You got him. We got a little bird on Riot, even though this has nothing to do with burning Riot. But as usual, we get it in there anyway, mate. And we even sort of, I even indirectly called Hotshot GG a sellout just for even mentioning Dominion, which, who knows, maybe in his youthful exuberance and desire to get stream views, he actually did believe was going to be a fun, fast, exciting game, Monty. I don't know. So, So what we're going to do on this show, a bit different from the other ones, is we're going to run through the first 4 days of the World's groups. And obviously, we don't have stats, because how could you? The teams haven't played each other, and they haven't even played in the same regions, thanks to this rule system that they have here.
We'll talk more about stats next week. We'll get a little bit more in-depth next week we'll have another show before the World's groups actually start. So it's going to be more of a general overview this week.
So we'll have a baseline of stats then from the first 4 days, basically. So we'll have something to go off. For now, we're going to use our brains and what we remember of the old stats. It's sort of like when you forget you've got an exam coming up and you're like, oh, what did he say in that class? Something about iron comes, something about steel and iron. Which order should I put it in? I'm going to go iron into steel. Yes, I got it. I knew that. And the person marking it's like, he clearly doesn't know this, but my rules say that he has written steel and iron, so I have to give him 2 marks. You're like, 2 marks counts still. That's pretty much how my whole life's gone, actually, Monty. At the end,
I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that, but that was pretty much your entire existence in League of Legends. But.
That's how it's gone, mate. As long as I keep saying the right words in the right order in enough times, I'll eventually accidentally get some. I'm sort of like, see, Monty, I'm the monkey in this one. I'm sort of like the infinite monkeys on typewriters, eventually typing out Shakespeare. See, I was going to make that edgy there, but I pulled back at the last second in my own mind. I've learned to do that. I just like money too much, mate. It's too good. So we'll start out, and on day one, we've got the first 2 games are in Group B, actually, because they've got Fnatic playing the first game against IG. Now, in this match, Monty, first and foremost, we'll do a little prediction. Who's going to win, Fnatic or IG, the first time they face?
This is obviously one of the harder matchups to call in this group, like quite difficult, in fact. And a lot of these teams, there are a lot of the players on these 2 teams that have a lot of similar strengths. So it's a little bit, I think, questionable where this is going because, but I would say IG maybe has a little bit of an advantage here because Cacao, I think, is a significant upgrade over Reignover. People have been talking about this is a great patch for Zitai, which it is. Huni has to adapt, I think, to this patch more than Zitai does because we saw how his Gangplank went in the finals of Europe. Of course, he's had a long time since then to work on it, so it's sort of speculation, I guess, because we don't really know how these teams have changed in the intervening weeks between the regional finals and Worlds. So I'm going to take IG here, but I don't know if I would pick players from either of these teams because who the hell knows, really. IG, though, the factor with IG and Fnatic is that IG should beat the other 2 teams in that group, HQ and C9, and IG will probably play some very bloody games, so they could get like a lot of fantasy points. So I don't actually, you know what? I kind of like that. If we're looking at the big 5,000 giveaway contest, when it comes to IG, they're not actually that high. Rookie is kind of surprisingly inexpensive at 7,700. He's the same as Febivin, so he might be a good choice. Rookie and Cacao are very reasonably priced in terms of salary and probably players that you want to pick up.
Which of those players, if their teams lose, do you think I would still do decently?
Rookie and Cacao. I would say Kid and Kitties probably won't do well if IG loses, but Rookie likes to play very aggressively in the laning phase, and they focus around ganking the mid lane a lot of the time. So that would be a good bet. Rookie also likes to duel, and so generally has quite a few kills. Also deaths, but
Yeah, that comes along with it, mate. Double
Kills.
lifting LMQ taught us that.
Kills are worth, for every kill is worth 3 deaths. So as long as you get a lot of kills, it doesn't matter too much how much you die.
What do you think about the fact that, obviously, again, Alphadraft don't themselves have the stats and baseline from which to set the initial stuff? Reckless is the 4th highest ADC of overall in the entire group stage. What do you think of that?
I think that is very expensive for Reckless considering his group. You probably would rather have somebody like Bang, who is more likely to win all 3 games in that group, and it's not going to, of course they could lose to EDG. The other kicker that you have to remember here is that when we're looking at the Worlds Groups formats, you also want to account for the fact that you probably want a team who's going to get into a tiebreaker, right? So they have to play an extra game, which is an added layer of complexity onto the group stage.
So who are those ones that are most likely to, in your opinion?
EDG and SKT probably will split 1-1 and then have to go to a tiebreak match, which makes SKT and EDG players pretty valuable, I think. And Bang is 7,900 here, and Bang always pretty much has a good score line. So he's not as good as some of the other players that we think of. Like Prey usually gets a lot of fantasy points. Imp will probably get a lot of fantasy points, so they're going to be on the higher end, especially since Prey and the Coup Tigers are such overwhelming favorites in Group A. That's why in every single position, the Coup Tigers are the most expensive, but they're also the most reliable. But if you're trying, again, if you're playing a 50-50, picking up 1 or 2 Coup players might be a good idea. But if you're really going for the big tournament, the free entry $5,000 giveaway, you probably want to start looking at teams, like I said, they're going to be in a tiebreak scenario. So EDG and SKT are probably good choices. As for other possible tie breaks, we could see one in Group A, depending on how that goes. But again, it's hard to say what CLG's level is with how the Flash Wolves will do or how Pain will do. We could see a tiebreaker in Group D, possibly either between KT and Origin or between LGD and KT. Possible that LGD and KT will both go 5-1 and then have to tie break against each other.
If the common denominator between those two matchups is KT, then KT is a pretty good team to try and pick for some players in that sense, though.
Yes, although ever since they got Pickaboo, their fantasy points went down because they started winning games more cleanly without having the bloodbaths that used to fuel them. But I would say, yeah, KT is still probably likely to have games on the bloodier side of things. So is Origin, probably.
Well, the thing is, Monty, what you have to realize is that's because, Pickaboo was playing against Korean supports. Now, when he plays against the likes of PYL, Lost Boy, and Mithy, who are top players in their regions, I feel like he won't have the playmaking, the mechanic, pack the memes in to be able. So the games will be bloodier naturally, Monty. There won't be those clean closeouts,
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to suddenly forget how to gank mid lane at level 1 like he likes to do and stuff like that. Just all goes out the window in international competition.
So, okay, that was match 1, Fnatic IG. Match 2, same group, C9 versus AHQ. Now, from what I remember, I'm guessing you're picking AHQ to win the game?
Yes. Yes. I think AHQ should comfortably win this. I don't think C9 is going to get 0-6'd in this group, though. I think that in one game, Shy's shot calling will win a game. And I think they may split 1-1 with AHQ in the end, but I think AHQ will win game 1. But again, it's hard to call. There have been a lot of rumors that AHQ is not performing very well in practice right now, so that's what gives me a little bit of pause. But yeah, I don't know. I think. Oh, the Fnatic IG is also possibly going to a tiebreaker game too. So those are other players that could get an extra game to get fantasy points in there.
So what if I told you that Ziv is the 7th highest ranked top laner and Anne is the 11th highest ranked AD carry? Are those reasonable picks, you think? What do you think?
Holy shit, Arrow is bottom 2 for 80 carries? Ooh, that's some value.
Again, listen, mate. He's in certain region, and he's not competing against the likes of Sneaky. He's getting against high level playmaking. I mean, Sneaky had to go against the likes of Afromu, who's pretty much Mad Life reincarnated. Like, actually, if you sync up their careers, when Mad Life dropped off, is when, much like the Dalai Lama, he actually was reincarnated in another life form, and this vessel just continued on carrying his old, like the essence that used to be there. And actually, he was reincarnated. That's when Afromu actually became a really good support player. It was right after 2013. Okay, that's when he became really good. So my only conclusion is he is actually the African American version of Mad Life.
Clearly, he's just that's why Mad Life was a hollow shell afterwards too. The skill actually transfers from consciousness to consciousness.
Sorted out. So what do you think about that then? Because those players are the two that are considered the stars of that team in terms of the carry roles, and they're very low. Especially Anne is 11th ranked out of 80 carries.
Yeah, all the 80 carries. It's worth noting though that Anne is, they're like half the 80 carries are within $200 of each other when it comes to salary though. So. I mean, he's tied there with guys like Niels, and Niels always had great fantasy points, right? So if Origin can actually win some games, Niels is going to be a great value.
Okay, let me put it another way. He's below NL, Sneaky, Yarnan,
yeah.
Let's put it that way. And Kid.
He's probably going to do better.
I mean, Kid looks like he's an actual OGN like commentator, even the way he's dressed. Like, what? He's allowed in the game? What? Look at him. He looks like he could be one of those guys on that Korean casting team. Anyway, madness. So, okay, that's the second matchup there. Is there anyone from... Would you be bold enough to pick anyone from C9 in this group? Because you said they're not going to go
No.
0-6. But
I don't think they will. I just think high shot calling will win them a game. But I would never. First off, Cloud9 doesn't do well when it comes to fantasy points anyway. So you combine that with the fact that they're probably just going to get wrecked in this group for the most part, and I would not select them. I think for the price that you can get AHQ and Cloud9 players, you're better off going with Fnatic and IG players because they're very reasonably priced. I mean, Zatai. I mean, Huni and Zatai are on the more expensive side, but Zatai is still only 7,700. You compare that to 9,100 for Smeb, and you have a lot of room to work with.
So SK Telecom plays H2K and will convincingly win.
Yes.
True?
Utterly true.
So here's the question. Will they win so hard that it means SK Telecom players won't necessarily be that great picks?
SKT was always in fantasy points near the middle of the pack. They didn't. I mean, Marin and Faker can be good pickups because they're going to be reliable winners here. And again, for like a 50-50, I think SKT is very safe. And potentially for the tiebreak reasons, too, you could pick up some of those players. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd rather have Rookie and Kid. Or, I mean, not Rookie and Kid, Rookie and Kakao. Those guys, I think, are going to get a lot of points in that group. If you have to look for players that should perform, should get out of groups, and yet are very reasonable in terms of salaries. So SKT may not be the best fantasy selection. It depends, again. If you're in a tournament, maybe, just because they could get an extra game against EDG if they tie 1-1. But if you're in a 50-50, probably definitely, because they're so likely to win most of the games in this group. I think worst case scenario for SKT, they go 4-2.
So in the next matchup, we have EDG versus Bangkok Titans. Now, it's a formality to say EDG obviously should win. There's no reason to say otherwise. But EDG players, in theory, as a team, they're a really good team fight team. So considering the group they're in, does that mean there's a decent chance you can get good points from them?
Sure, again, because they could tie and force a tiebreak with SKT, and they're moderately priced here. It could be very good to have EDG players on that roster. Hopefully it's the EDG that showed up out of the regionals for China as opposed to the playoffs for China. But in any case, I think if we're talking about EDG, you have to think about guys like Clearlove. Clearlove's very expensive, but
high kill participation, right?
Yeah, high kill participation. So
who else?
I don't know whether Koro or Amazing J is playing yet, and that actually is pretty influential because Amazing J is more of a bruiser carry top laner than Koro is. And they ran Amazing J in the regionals recently, ostensibly because Koro was sick. But I don't really know there what's gonna go on with who they are going to select in the top lane. It is, I think, a bit of a gamble. Because a lot of people are theorizing that they'll just run Amazing J because of the meta.
So CLG plays against Flash Wolves. And CLG, remember, at least as we know now, shouldn't have Xmithy as the jungler. So who will actually win this matchup?
I think CLG will. I still think that Stake is going to be a problem on Flash Wolves. And even though we talked with Clement on Summoning Insight about the choice to use NL over Kramer, NL really, just for communication reasons, so they don't make sort of lane swap mistakes, NL really is not a very good AD carry, so that mismatch for CLG I think is going to be pretty huge. Double Lift should do quite well, and Double Lift has always been a player that puts up insane fantasy point numbers, right? I think CLG is going to get out second in this group, so I think it's worth having Double Lift on your roster because of how many points he does tend to get. He's expensive, but he's probably worth it.
In this group, are there any Flash Wolves players you're going to take? Because obviously the thing with Flash Wolves is they could have potentially great games with everyone in the group almost.
Yep, and one thing to remember about Flash Wolves too is that they probably have the best jungler in this group with Karsa. So Karsa could be...
Who's fairly cheap.
Yes, he is. He is fairly cheap. So Karsa, I would say, is up there in terms of skill, whether it's Hojin or Karsa, who's the best jungle in this group, but Karsa is very cheap. So if Flash Wolves make it out and they can beat CLG, then Karsa could be really good value.
Okay, and the last game of day one is Pain versus Coup. And based on what you've already said, you're going to predict Coup to win?
Yes. I think Pain could upset. There's even an outside shot that they get second place in this group. I have them pegged at third, but Coup should win this one pretty easily.
Now, Coup players are the most expensive at every single role. Is it worth taking any?
This is the team that I think is most likely out of all the groups to go 6-0. So if you can force them in there, you're fine. But again, Coup, I think, unlikely to have to play a tiebreaker.
It does seem impossible to justify picking Kuro at $10,000. It was literally a fifth of your team, and you have to pick 7 people, remember?
Yeah, it does seem quite expensive, especially when you consider that Rookie is $2,300 cheaper than him.
Like, I'm pretty sure even Kuro's dad goes on the site and he's like, you know what? God V's 8,700. Sorry, Kuro, I'm not feeling it, son. I'm going to go another route on this one and need that Alphadraft money. Thorin said, pay me. So, is there anyone you would take from it? Like, would you take Prey, for example?
Prey,
because as you mentioned, the AD carries aren't as disproportionately far apart from each other.
Right.
In terms of their salary amount.
Yes, they're not. And Prey, while expensive, could be worth it. If you can get him, he'll probably put up more points in Double Lift just by virtue of winning more games. So, again, it's so hard to recommend that, though, when Bang is, like, really pretty cheap. Even Niels could have a good performance. Arrow, here's the thing about KT. KT's players are insanely cheap. Arrow is 7,200. All of KT players, for some reason, are really, really cheap. Nagne is down at the bottom of the mid laners. Score is down. He scores only 6,500. Fucking Someday is only 6,900.
It's because actually, I didn't want to have to really reveal this to you now, Monty, because I didn't want there to be any kind. Like, listen, I always say, don't ever queer the deal. Like, don't ever bring a factor into it that can mess up like a really good thing for everyone. Like, actually, Alphadraft is secretly owned by Riot Miri, and he actually sets the numbers down. There's not even any stats going into it, Monty. He just tells him what it is. So, KT players, they're not very good, mate. I mean, they got through that little like farm region for China, but they're not top tier players, you know.
Lust Boy costs more than Peekaboo. I don't even understand that. Like, they're in the same group.
This group, mate.
They're in the same group. And how is it possible that Peekaboo is cheaper than Lust Boy? By the way, in the NA playoffs, Lust Boy was, I think, the lowest player when it came to fantasy points. Out of all the players in the playoffs, I think he was the lowest. He was at least bottom 3, 100%. And he's cheaper than... or he's more expensive than Peekaboo.
No one can explain it, mate. Apparently computers do all this stuff nowadays, but that just makes me worried because, you know, here's the problem, you know, whenever everyone talks about like artificial intelligence gaining sentience, they're really worried that it's going to be super intelligent and hyper like brutal, and that it'll just realize what humans are doing and it'll kill us off for the good of the planet and so that it can reign supreme. I always think maybe it'll go the other way. Maybe the first computer you create that has sentience, you go and talk to it and you're like, okay, I've programmed you, computer, to be able to tell me an opinion on League of Legends. You're like, what do you think of League of Legends? And it just goes, TSM are number 1. You go, oh my God, it's a moron. Oh, what have I done? I thought the hubris to think I, the human, could create life, and this is what I have done. And then you will actually just cast it off on an iceberg like Frankenstein style. And, you know.
I hope your children are like that, Thorin.
What, computers that I've programmed to be the simulation of real people? Yeah, probably. But the difference is, Monty, no government in the world would commit me for deleting the hard drives of those robot children, as it were. So there we go. That's a sci-fi little twist for you guys there. Didn't think you would get out the buy numbers. So, okay, we'll go on to day 2 now. So day 2 starts with KT versus TSM. Oh boy, this is going to be a good day. Let's see, what's that? The 2nd of October. 2nd of October. And it's going to start at 4 p.m. European time. So I might even be doing an event there, Monty. But I might have the little phone under the desk there. Just watching every now and then, see what's happening. You know, keep in. I don't usually like to watch League live games, but yeah, I might make a little exception. So, who's going to win this match, Monty? KT versus TSM. Real question.
KT should win this.
And which players do you think have the best chance against TSM to do well?
I think Someday is a very good investment. It's a hard group for top laners, except for Someday against TSM. So Someday has a chance to really go off right here. Score, probably a very good choice in this group in particular. That's one of the things about this group is that Score and Amazing are probably the two top junglers, considering that TBQ is in this group with Santorin. So Score could be a very good pickup for KT, especially since he's only 6,500. He's extremely cheap. And again, KT is a team that I think is likely to go to a tiebreaker, whether that tiebreaker is for first place against LGD or for second place against a team like Origin, who definitely has upset potential. So KT and Origin could have some very good value, those particular players. So KT is cheap. Score is 6,500, Amazing 6,600. I think these are great values on these players.
Especially since, here's another thing. Even if you're a TSM fan, listen, I know you guys like to pretend you're still into League of Legends. It's been years and years since you actually playing on the ladder and trying to grind up and naively thinking you were ever going to hit platinum. You never were. The stats tell us that none of you do. So don't worry about that. It's never going to happen for you, okay? Give up. But I know you watch the game. You're still like, yeah, but I still like to watch the best players play. But really you don't, because you've seen TSM lose in national competitions. You like a bit of the LCS. So all you're really watching for, guys, still is drama. You just want those sick drama bombs that make you feel alive inside, and you rage and you rail against the darkening of the night. But it's all for the drama. So you guys should want Dyrus to get wrecked. Because when he gets bodied by Acorn, and then when he gets his head smashed in by Someday, and then when even Soaz pops in with a cheeky little gangplank off some Fiora and wrecks him, that's just going to build up to the ultimate drama, the Nagasaki of drama bombs, when Dyrus retires, forcible retirement, by the way, from TSM at the end of Worlds, and makes that god-tier Facebook post that we're all waiting for, okay? So just, listen, you guys should even be pulling for this. They're sort of like the guys where, sometimes like a boxer, or they'll have an NFL player, when they're like hyping each other up, they'll have a guy like punch their stomach like, and they'll be like, yeah, like that. That's what Someday and Acorn are going to do. They're going to work the ribs and get him into a frenzy. Okay, so look out for it, guys. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be great.
You're spoiling it though.
I know. So game 2, LGD versus Origin. Is this a foregone conclusion, Monty? Will LGD win?
I don't think it is a foregone conclusion, but I would say that obviously LGD is a heavy favorite going up against Origin. I think Origin certainly improved, but we've seen kind of two sides of Origin. The Origin that takes Fnatic to 5 games and the one that gets taken to 5 games by Roccat, right? So they have a bit of instability there going on still, but they do. Origin always puts up insane fantasy points, right? We look at guys like Niels and Soaz. They're very, very heavy in terms of points. So an LGD Origin game, while LGD is likely to win, could be really high kill. Really high kill. So Origin players I don't think are necessarily bad to pick up in this group for fantasy points. And there's a possibility they get out in second seed. I don't know if KT... There's definitely a chance for an upset there.
See, Monty, I bet I threw a lot of people with that. They were like, wait a minute, Nagasaki, you mean Hiroshima, right? No. See, I'm a hipster when it comes to my nuclear explosions. I actually prefer the sequel. I think the first one, it's a bit too obvious, a bit too cliched. The second one, who expected that? They already dropped one nuke. You drop another one, it's like, hey, listen, a lot of great artists are trying to do the same thing over and over again and perfect the craft. I prefer the sequel myself. In fact, Nagasaki, I'm going to put it right now, is number 1 in my top 20 nuclear explosions to ever happen on planet Earth. But that is not, by the way, to say that number 1 is better than number 2, because to do so in such a rankings would be not really relevant or interesting. I prefer to just talk about why the bombings happened and what happened than to rank like why one is better than the other there. So you see what I mean? I'm even bringing like actual atrocities that happen in history into memes, Monty. I'm actually like, I meme beyond the boundaries, okay? I go beyond the final frontier, mate. So anyway,
we know you do.
It's true that actually is the real byline to my autobiography, Monty. I go beyond the final frontier. So okay, of taste, decency, cultural appropriateness, whatever it may be. So who would be the best players for LGD here? Imp.
Imp is really expensive. He's very expensive, but he could deliver some really good value, obviously, given his current level of play. I would say stay away from TBQ in this group. Acorn is actually very good value. He's down at 7,100 right now, so it's 2,000 below the Smeb who's on top. So actually, Acorn is probably the best value on LGD.
And if I tell you SOAS costs 6,400.
Ooh.
It's a pretty nice, cheap buy, right, to round out the roster?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe.
That's very inexpensive. Why is he cheaper than Dyrus?
Listen, again, the computer, we were like, listen, its first words are going to be spoken. I think Chaos could have been a world-class Chinese AD carry if he joined World Elite. Oh, God. It's only, we've done too good a job. It's a real human. These people exist.
I think that if you actually programmed an AI and it actually just looked at internet comments to try and figure out who the best team was, it actually would turn out a moron like that.
Yeah, maybe that's what LoL Esports did, actually. It is just the first sentient AI, just trolling Reddit comments and making an aggregate of it in like a form of an opinion post. Could be. That might be what's going on. Might crack. So, okay. After that, we have, again, another pretty one-sided matchup. SK Telecom versus Bangkok Titans. Kind of covered this before. I'm guessing in this particular type of match, this is basically the case limit of why you would never pick an SKT player in this particular sense, because it's almost certain they're going to win too quickly, right?
Yes, they'll win probably very fast and with a very clean snowball. So you probably aren't going to get a lot of points on this one, even with an SK Telecom win. This game should be over in under 25 minutes.
Now, supposedly, H2K are a good team fighting team, Monty. So if they go against EDG, what can they do?
Probably not a lot.
They might present an interesting challenge, though. Not interesting, really. Just they're not going to do shit out of it.
I just think that going in Group C, if you are trying to pick up H2K or Bangkok Titans players, I think a best case scenario for H2K is they somehow go 3-3 by taking a game off of either SKT or EDG. Best case.
Wait a minute. Monty, I just looked on the old stats, Rooney, and Bangkok Titans Lloyd is the same salary as Wild Turtle and same salary as Arrow. So all checks out.
Probably would rather have Arrow. You know what's interesting, though, is that BRTT from Pain is actually 6,600. And considering Pain could pull off some upsets, that's like a possible outside pick, I think. And he's just incredibly cheap.
Okay, let's have a look. So then we've got Flash Wolves versus Coup, who we kind of touched on before. So in this matchup, I mean, we've said the Coup players are pretty expensive. Can Flash Wolves actually make it worth your while in terms of Coup players for a matchup like this?
I think Coup has this easy. Smeb just outclasses Stakes so hard. And again, Prey versus NL is probably not going to be pretty. So I think Coup has this one pretty clearly. If Flash, whoever takes second in this group probably is not going to beat Coup. So
the last game of day 2 is CLG versus Pain. Now, based on what you said before, you were quite up on Pain. So can Pain beat CLG?
I think they can. I think it's a possibility. I don't think they will. Again, I think Coup and CLG will be the two teams leaving this group, even with CLG's issues. But it is very hard to call who the second team is going to be. And I think Pain has a chance of upsetting. And in fact, Pain might just play spoiler to either Flash Wolves or CLG and decide the second place seed just through an upset. So Pain is so cheap, though. That's the thing that gets me, is that I don't think they will make number 2, but if they do make number 2, Mylon is only 5,800. He's been a pretty stable performer on Pain. Kami is only 6,300. Again, BRTT is by far the cheapest AD carry at 6,600. So, you know, if I had 20 entries on this contest, I might just make one roster with a bunch of Pain players just in case they do have some big upsets.
You know, my favorite, by the way, is that if you look on junglers, Xmithy is the second most expensive in the whole tournament. Xmithy or Hui, even though the sub that's coming in isn't even a jungler. But, yeah, why not? Let the madness reign supreme, right? Why not? So day 3 starts with the blockbuster, Monty. EDG versus SKT, rematch of the MSI final. Who's going to win that? The first time they meet, this is, remember.
I think SKT will. I think they're very consistent. I think that EDG, that matchup that we saw when SKT was in the groups at MSI, the first game they played was pretty one-sided in favor of SK Telecom. And EDG was, I think, good at adapting to SKT's style and picks over the course of a best of 5. But I think just with SKT's baseline consistency, they should win here.
Right, let me have a look. So then we've got H2K versus Bangkok Titans. Now, presumably, H2K is going to win this one. So does the fact that they can win, in theory, both against Bangkok Titans, make any of their players worthwhile in terms of a cheap pick or a round-out pick? I mean, obviously, this should be for the day when it takes place, not the group.
Right, because the other contests will be divided by day, so you have to consider that factor.
We're not going to do a show until next week, so that's why we're doing all more now, basically.
Yeah, and we'll get down into each individual day a little bit more deeply next week, and I'll be able to sign up for some of those contests and tell you.
Like, what do you think for that one? Is there any H2K player that could be worth it?
Odo Omne, probably. Could put up some points. Kjarnan will probably put up some points. I think you're pretty good there with some of these choices that you've got on H2K. I think a heavy investment on day 3 into H2K may not be a bad idea.
So another blockbuster matchup takes place this day, which is LGD versus KT. So who's actually going to win that one? The first meeting.
I think LGD should win, but there is the possibility that KT wins that match, obviously. It is closer. But I think LGD should be able to take that first victory up against KT.
What style of game do you think that sort of a matchup should be?
Oh, I think these games are going to be terribly, terribly bloody. But again, with the value of some of these KT players, you never know. But we don't have the actual salaries for the day 3 contest yet. That won't be done until later. So it's possible that LGD will be very expensive today and KT will be more pricey. But there's also the possibility that KT has some really good value picks that day because they are the underdog against LGD for sure.
And then Origin plays TSM. Who's going to win?
Origin should take that, I think, pretty confidently.
And in what matchups should they be favored?
Soaz, amazing. Should be very favorable matchups for them. Wouldn't take Xpeke. But Niels, Soaz, and Amazing Niels, I would say Soaz and Amazing are definitely the most one-sided matchups. So I would go for those guys.
IG plays C9. Is it even possible for C9?
Nope. And it's also Kakao versus High. That's pretty one-sided for Kakao, I think. So IG should end balls against Zitai. So I'd take Kakao and Zitai there.
Okay, and the last game of day 3 rather is AHQ Fnatic. Now, obviously, when they met at MSI before they had Reckless, AHQ actually won that game in the group stage. Will this be competitive this time around?
I think Fnatic should take this. I think Huni is going to adapt his champion pool by the time Worlds rolls around and be much more of a force in the current meta. So I would have confidence in Huni here. Ziv, obviously, it's a very interesting matchup, so that might not be the best matchup for this particular game. Westor also has a pretty decent champion pool for the patch. A lot of his traditional champions that he performs on are available for him to use. But AHQ's on blue side here. And that means that they can't last pick a TF or anything like that for Westor. So I think Fnatic has an advantage. AHQ might have more flexibility on the red side. So I'd take Fnatic here.
Okay, so we're on to the last day we're going to do this time. So it starts off with TSM LGD. Is this a foregone conclusion?
I think 100%. I don't see a way that TSM wins this.
Oh,
I
but
think
wait, Monty, you have to remember, if you can attack the weak spot, because the weak spot of LGD is the juggler. Yeah, never mind. My bad, my bad.
Well, especially exactly, and you have to attack that weak spot, right? Like you have to put TBQ, you have to put pressure on him early, and Santorin just doesn't do early pressure very well. So that's, I think, a major issue for them. That said, I probably wouldn't pick TBQ here, but there are other matchups that are going to be really great, such as Acorn and Imp, can be probably pretty valuable players here in this particular game. Those are the guys that I would really look after, maybe PYL too. So that's definitely a factor.
So then we have KT and Origin. You alluded before that, hey, maybe it's even a tiebreaker possibility here. So if they were to tiebreak, that means Origin has to win one of the games. So will they win the first or the second one, which is the most likely to you? Like, do you think they like getting the surprise factor? Like, for example, for someone like KT, maybe they've never played a team like Origin when they play them, turn up. I mean, just from watching LCK, I don't think there is a team like Origin in that league. So who knows, right?
Yeah, I think there definitely is upset potential, like I've been saying. But for Origin and KT, it's possible that they split 1-1 in the group stage. I'd still give the edge to KT, but Origin, again, they put up a lot of fantasy points, so there could be good value on the Origin players if they pull off that upset.
So IG play AHQ. Are you confident in IG for this matchup?
Yeah, I am. Just based on their... If they stay... Again, a lot of questions by the time we get to day 4 will have been answered about IG because we don't know if they're going to stay at the level that they showed like in the regional qualifiers, because they have been really inconsistent. And if they come into Worlds looking pretty like in one of their downswings, then by this time there could be more of a possibility for AHQ by day 4 to take an upset win here. But before the tournament starts, I think IG is going to stay at that same level that we saw. Again, because remember, they were playing on patch 5.16, which is more like 5.18 than 5.15. So with those changes already starting to take hold and that they were seemingly excelling at them, I think there's definitely value there. So I think that IG should win.
So the last game of Group B is C9 versus Fnatic. Formerly one of the great international matchups, used to be so competitive. This time around, how do you think it will be?
Fnatic should absolutely crush this game. If they don't, it's going to be, I think, a pretty big disappointment. They have Huni, Balls hasn't been performing very well. I think high Rainover's good.
Oh, sweet Lord. Monty's lagging. Is it just me? Or is it Monty or is it Sam? We never know. Oh, Lord. Are we still live? We're still live, so I won't tell everyone what I think about countries in Eastern Europe. Now, we'll wait for Monty to come back. Is he back? Is he back? Hello? It's not back yet. I fantasize about an esports show, much like fantasy esports, on Alphadraft, where you can play it and enter competitions. Oh, Lord, they can see his icon. This is all going so badly. We've made such mistakes. Are you back, Monty?
I'm back.
Okay. Right, I think your camera's coming in now, mate. They're just bringing it in. So I think you have to start that answer over again. Like, we cut off at some point.
I was just saying, like, for this C9 matchup, there actually are some interesting matchups on paper, such as, like, Expectate versus Incarnation or Sneaky versus Reckless. But I think Fnatic can take this pretty comfortably.
Okay, so 2 games left, and they're both in Group A. So we get KU versus CLG. Now, this is a game where, in theory, KU don't have that great a jungler. Maybe that helps out a little bit with the whole Hui situation. CLG's strength primarily is the bot lane. KU have a really good bot lane. KU have a really good top laner. CLG have a really good top laner. Mid laners both often receive criticism. It's a pretty good matchup, right?
I think it's actually a very interesting matchup, especially since we haven't seen Prey and Doublelift play against each other since All-Stars in 2013, in which if you remember, the special Doublelift lane got absolutely insanely dumpstered by Prey and Madlife, and Doublelift died a bunch in lane and like ate every hook from Madlife, and Prey killed him a bunch. But Coming into this one, this is a matchup that I really, really hope we get to see standard lanes in. Like, I really want to see Smeb versus Zion. I really want to see Prey and Gorilla versus Afro and Double Lift. Like, these are very exciting matchups to me. That said, I think Ku has significantly better mid-game shot calling and split pushing potential than CLG does. So I think they'll just win based off of map control and shot calling. Also, way better vision control.
If Ku win, can CLG still have good numbers on people like Doublelift?
Yeah, Doublelift always, even when Doublelift loses, he puts up decent fantasy points because he doesn't die a lot, period. He's been very good this summer season, so I think having Doublelift on your fantasy team is probably a pretty good choice.
So the last matchup we're going to do is Pain Gaming versus Flash Wolves.
Pain can win this. They definitely can win this. They were showing some interesting double teleport strategies and very good teleport play when they beat Chaos Latin Gamers in the international wildcard. So it's certainly a possibility that they come back and take a game off of Flash Wolves. I really don't know. The Group A is so difficult between CLG, Pain, and Flash Wolves because all of these teams are coming in. Like, Pain's definitely coming in on a really big high. For example, they have not lost a game in either the Brazilian playoffs or the international wildcard. So they haven't even lost a game since the regular season in Brazil. So they've been riding a huge hot streak. Flash Wolves, again, they're making a roster shift back to NL from Kramer, so we don't really know about that. And CLG has the jungler problem. So it's very hard to get a read on these three teams.
Okay, so that's this week's show. Do you have any parting words for people?
No. Thanks to Alphadraft. Love you guys.
Thanks to Alphadraft. And remember, guys, if you're going to play Alphadraft, do it by the numbers.